Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here this evening. I want to thank our hosts, the Arlington Young Democrats, who put together this debate, and Jimmy McBirney for moderating. As many of you know, I got my real start in politics as the former president of the Arlington Young Democrats, and that beeping is not for me. It's where I made countless friends, helped elect amazing Democrats across Virginia, and it's where I met my brilliant wife, Sarah. The Young Democrats is also where I learned what drives me to this day. I believe in a Commonwealth that lifts everyone up and leaves no one behind. As your delegate, I've been a champion for our values in Richmond. I'm proud of the work I've done and the relationships I've developed to find common ground and get things accomplished. Over the last 8 years, I've been the patron, co-patron, or chief co-patron of 115 bills signed into law. I'm proud to have passed legislation addressing everything from small business procurement to tenant protections to criminal justice reform as it relates to driver's licenses, suspensions, cybersecurity protections for military and passport holders, to incentivizing renewable energy and protecting immigrants from fraud. I'm especially proud of my legislation that created the Virginia Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which has already invested over $1.7 million on projects in our community, and my efforts this year to increase overall funding to $18 million. Going forward, we have to focus on jobs and the economy, education, and the needs of working families. I pledge to continue fighting for better schools, long-term transportation solutions, environmental safeguards, new jobs and economic development, and the Virginia values of embracing diversity, tolerance, and compassion that we all hold dear. Politics is about improving people's lives. As I hope I've shown you over the last 8 years, I will always work hard to make sure Virginia is a place where we lift everyone up and leave no one behind. I look forward to the conversation this evening.
Good evening, Arlington Young Democrats, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Delegate Lopez, for being here this evening, and thank everyone else here this evening. The 49th District, my friends, is not only historic and vibrant, but it is a place that is culturally diverse. And now more than ever, not only does our country, our state, and the 49th District needs leaders who have integrity, character, and are honest. Our community deserves a public servant who is progressive, transparent, and accountable. Someone who will be a new perspective to the table and enrichment, and elevate the voices of people like yourselves, the young people. And that's why I fully support your resolution calling on more financial investment early on in the careers for young progressives seeking political careers. I am that person. My name is J.D. Spain, and I'm a candidate for Virginia House of Delegates. Many of you know I'm a retired Marine Corps veteran of 26 years, combat veteran that is, a former Department of Defense Congressional Fellow, a former senior advisor in the Marine Corps Legislative Affairs in the Pentagon, a former board of director to a nonprofit organization in Virginia, a former commissioner on the Arlington Civil Service Commission, and currently serve as the president of the Arlington branch of the NAACP, where I've been with the NAACP for many years. It's nonpartisan, but what we've done there, we've worked for years on civil rights, for decades to eliminate race-based discrimination across many platforms. And I've been there, my friends, where the rubber meets the road. As a community activist and a resident of the 49th for 10 years, I'm also a parent of 3 children that went through Arlington Public Schools. I see the experience, I have the experience and have the firsthand knowledge of what things and how they affect people every day, more especially our young Democrats. I have a few priorities: education, affordable living, social justice, effective representation. I hope to discuss that with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I get to open my binder. All right, the first question will be for Alfonso, since he started this evening. The majority of your constituents in Arlington lie along Columbia Pike. Our members see a vast difference in quality of infrastructure, transportation, availability, and general resources between North and South Arlington. What do you see as the biggest challenges that the Pike faces, and what are your plans to address the challenges? 1 minute.
That's a 3-hour conversation. Transit, affordable housing, economic development, and overall social safety net. You need to be addressing each of those things in a comprehensive way. It has to be a state approach as well as a regional as well as a local approach. You need buy-in from corporations, you need buy-in from the region as it relates to transit, and I'm incredibly disappointed by certain things that did not get done on Columbia Pike regarding the streetcar, regarding promises regarding BRT that never materialized. Now, these are local issues. At the state level, though, I'm proud of the work that we've done to actually create more affordable housing. And we need to create affordable housing in every corner of Virginia, in every corner of Arlington, not just along the Pike. But like I said, this is a conversation that should go on for at least 3 hours.
Thank you. JD?
So every Arlingtonian deserves to live and work right on in the same location. Affordable housing, my friends, as many of you know, has been an issue of concern in this area, not just the past 6 months or the past year, for many years. Take, for example, I have a daughter who's 25 years old and went to college and came back home. And she can't afford to, and I live in Penrose, and she can't afford to live on the Pike. That's reality. Now, what can I do if I'm a delegate? I'm sure I could work with the state and other partners to address the issues of affordable housing, but it's also a local issue, right? We saw what just happened with Amazon. They came here, we got nothing in return, basically. And the prices have skyrocketed already in real estate. That's a fact. So we didn't get any guarantees from Amazon. They're here, but I know there's more we can do. And what the delegate talked about, a 3-hour conversation, I'll agree. It probably is a 3-hour conversation. But I will pledge to do more to mitigate the second and third order effects behind companies like Amazon coming to this area where prices on Columbia Pike are just skyrocketed. Thank you.
Thank you both. The next question, I'm told I'm too tall for this microphone. The next question, we will start with JD. How have you centered women in positions of leadership in your campaign? How will you, or how have you, worked to support women through legislation enrichment? JD, 1 minute.
Okay, well, thank you for that question about women and having a wife and 2 girls and a young man. We get our taste of it. But in my campaign chair is Ms. Kim Phillips. She's a female. In fact, 95% of my campaign is made up of women. I believe in women, and to be honest with you, they're smarter than me, all right? But I took a close look at my campaign, for example, and I wanted to bring people in that were passionate and knew what they were doing. And it just so happened that 95% of my team are women. And there's more that women can do. There's a lot more that women can do, and that's what thank you.
Thank you. Alfonso, same question.
Well, the brilliant Abby Olmstead is my campaign manager. The amazing Salam is my field director. I've had numerous campaign staff as well as staff in Richmond who have been women. But on issues, I was helping lead the fight on ERA even before this year. I put in that legislation, that constitutional amendment 2 years ago. I did it, and I've worked with Jennifer Carroll Foy and Hala Ayala to get it done. I also have been working to protect a woman's right to choose from attacks upon attacks upon attacks in Richmond. I've also been working to even the playing field when it comes to income equity as well as issues regarding employment. And then, when I was the campaign chair before Rip Sullivan for the House Democratic Caucus, I basically said, if all things are equal, we're going with diversity. And I actually reached out and I recruited folks like Hala Ayala 4 years before she pulled the trigger. And they're amazing. And of our new freshmen this past 2 years, 11 of the 16 are women, and they're changing Virginia.
Thank you both very much. The next question, and we will start this time with Alfonso. What is your understanding of the policy elements contained in the Virginia Green New Deal, and do you support the Virginia Green New Deal? Why or why not? All in 1 minute.
Well, I'm very proud of the fact that in my first year in the House of Delegates, I created, for the first time, the Virginia Environment and Renewable Energy Caucus, or the first time we brought folks from both sides of the aisle together to actually talk about environmental safeguards, to talk about renewable energy, to actually put together solutions that have been working over the last 8 years. I do support the Green New Deal. I do support what its aspirations are, as well as what it's doing in specifics regarding addressing climate change. But here's the thing. Virginia should be the leader, in the mid-Atlantic at least, when it comes to renewable energy. We should be the leader for wind off the coast, solar in the valley, hydrokinetic in our rivers. The best place in Virginia, in America, to grow switchgrass, which is a biofuel, is Martinsville, Virginia, a place in desperate need of agriculture jobs. We're leaving tens of thousands of dollars and millions upon millions, tens of thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars on the table every year by not taking the lead and doing more when it comes to renewable energy.
Same question.
Yep. So
JD?
my understanding, I've signed on with the Green New Deal Virginia. My understanding of it is that it's going to create jobs to address climate change. And I'm all about clean air and clean water. No one disputes that climate change is not happening. There's many things we need to do. There's more we need to do. I agree. If you're talking about wind, solar, even here in the Commonwealth, there's a whole lot more we need to do. However, we have elected members down in Richmond who've taken an enormous amount of what I call dirty money from organizations such as Dominion, right? And that can be disputed, but those are the facts. So, but I won't be taking any money from Dominion. Don't have to worry about that. So, there's more we can do. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Under the rules, you each have 30 seconds. You don't have to use all of it. What is one concrete environmental policy that you would like to see implemented during the next session, starting with Alfonso?
Oh, actually, I'm going to give you 5. We need to increase funding for Ag BMP. We need to increase funding for stormwater runoff into the Chesapeake Bay. We need to increase overall Chesapeake Bay remediation. We need to become a member of RGGI to address climate change. And we also, the last thing is, I would love it if we actually started tracking where our hazardous waste dumps and hazardous waste sites are in the Commonwealth, so that people know and have a right to know where they build their homes, where they build their buildings, so that they're not building them on toxic waste dumps.
JD, same question, 30 seconds or less.
Right, so solar energy is what it is for me. I think we need to do more to invest in solar energy, and I'd like to see, there was a bill that took place during the last session where we were trying to get some solar panels on churches across the Commonwealth, at least start there, but I would definitely like to work more in the solar area. Solar energy,
Can I
excuse me.
pull this up for a second?
Absolutely.
So just to piggyback on that, we've actually done a great deal on solar in the last 3 years. In fact, we finally passed 4 major pieces of legislation to address solar and to start building some of the largest solar facilities in the United States in Virginia. And that took a lot of work. It took a lot of advocating from people in this room, as well as numerous members of the General Assembly, but we're moving forward on solar in a way that I'm incredibly proud of. And I was the chief co-patron of 2 of those 4 bills that got passed.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take that flag away from you. Always wanted one of these. Next question is for JD. Mm-hmm. What is your greatest accomplishment in public service, and how does it benefit your current or future constituents?
My greatest accomplishment would sit, at this point, personal accomplishment will be that of serving our country. I didn't take that lightly, and 26 years is not a drop in the bucket, okay? And having gone to combat with a family and kids left behind, being able to come back and do that, and at the same time serve our country honorably, is one of the greatest personal achievements that have occurred in my life, yet alone the myriad of other things I've been involved in. Thank you.
Alfonso.
It's actually 3 or 4. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, creating the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in my second year in the House of Delegates, and then getting it funded. Actually working with the Attorney General to create a new SHEV letter so that even though it's not in the code, Dreamer students today, as long as the Attorney General is in office, can get in-state tuition. Just a few weeks ago, making sure that we banned the suspension of driver's licenses finally in Virginia, and we stopped making a modern-day debtor's prison. And then 4th, the expansion of Medicaid to 400,000 people, including 5,600 people in the 49th district. What does it say that in a county that is as wealthy and as well educated as Arlington, and in Fairfax. There are 5,600 people in my district, the fourth highest concentration in any district in Virginia who would benefit from Medicaid expansion. It's shameful, is what it is. The fact that we were able to get that vote done, that was the proudest vote I've ever taken in the House of Delegates.
All right, the next question we will start with Alfonso. How would you advocate for the rights of disabled persons in our community? How will you work on disability inclusion in schools, in public transportation, and in other areas?
I have been very lucky to work with folks like Daniel Davis and other disability activists across Virginia who have really helped me try to get it across to other members of the General Assembly that disability issues are not just what's right in front of you. Disability issues are in odd things like banking regulations. We had a bill this past year that we're still working on where banks did not want to comply with the ADA when it came to cash machines. And so that's a real issue for people who are disabled. And it's things like that. It's things like building homes that can, and making it part of how we move forward that are actually compliant for wheelchairs. It's about making sure that we're taking these next steps that for the last 21 years have not been addressed. We have so many great bills from around the country and great ideas from around the country that we need to start moving on that we simply haven't been able to with the Republican majority.
So I have a young gentleman working on my campaign with that has a disability. I have individuals in my family that are disabled and have disabilities. Though I'm not as well versed at this time as the incumbent is, I will tell you that anything that I could do in my capacity as a legislator to help aid and assist those with disabilities, I'm all for it. But there's also a part about disabilities which kind of ties into almost criminal justice. We have a number of our individuals, our youth out there that are disabled, people of color, mental health illnesses that are being arrested and being locked up. Failures, we don't have mental health courts. And that's a whole other thing. I know that the Commonwealth attorneys will probably tackle that in their debate, but even as a legislature, that's something we can do and put in statute to address our severely disabled, and especially those being charged with crimes. Thank you.
I'm going to ask another follow-up question, 30 seconds or less, starting again with Alfonso. How would you respond to a small business owner who objects to additional disability rights legislation and says, this is going to cost jobs and this is going to put me out of business?
Well, that's a very good question because I was the assistant administrator of the Small Business Administration in the Barack Obama administration. And we've actually had to have these kinds of conversations for years in every corner of the country. There are ways that you can address this at the federal level, but at the same time, with regard to small businesses, I understand how much people put into creating a small business. Their blood, their sweat, their entire bank account. And so it is a balance you need to make, and it is a balance that you can actually address sometimes by saying, here's a set aside, or here's something else that might be addressed, but we can get into that afterwards.
Yeah, once again, like I said earlier, I support not only those with disabilities, but during this campaign, I've been out across the foyer and I've talked with small business owners, and I think that whatever I could do in my capacity, once I learn a little bit more about how it relates with small business owners and those with disabilities, I can make a more sound decision or recommendation on that. Thanks.
Thank you both. Next question, we'll start with JD. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to be a progressive? How have you maintained progressive ideals throughout your career?
So, what it means to be a progressive, I think I have, I've been a progressive all my life. And a progressive means being out front, having some moral courage, going to places and doing things that those individuals may not, even in your party, may not want to do or hesitant to do. I think the values of the Democratic Party, what we believe in, should be enumerated at all times. But what troubles me even more today than ever is even within the Democratic Party, is that we have progressive ideals and positions, yet we don't have individuals with the moral courage to stand up when they claim they're progressive at times of need. So I've been being a progressive all my life, and I will continue to do so.
Alfonso?
I am proud to have worked in the Clinton White House, the Obama White House, and as a member of Governor Kane's administration as the head of Congressional and Federal Affairs. I have seen up close and personal what it means to be a progressive. My family has lived these values, going back into my great-grandfather who ran for the state Senate in Pennsylvania on the socialist ticket when it wasn't safe to do that in the 1920s. Here's the thing. Progressives have actually created every major social change in the United States for the last 150 years. Progressives are what, and that ideology is what moves us forward. Progressive majority in the House of Delegates will take Virginia forward. I've been fighting tooth and nail for 8 years to recruit candidates, to raise money, to actually create, for really the first time, a true progressive majority in the House of Delegates. Think of what we can accomplish in terms of the social safety net, affordable housing, environmental safeguards, transit, economic development, and education.
Moderator follow-up question. What, in your view, is the difference between progressivism and socialism? JD.
So to what we talked about a little bit earlier, progressivism is having those values in my belief of what we today live to and believe in as the Democratic Party. But in socialism, having lived abroad in Europe for a number of years in a socialist state, I would say we're not there. Many would argue and say that socialism is that the government per se takes on everything and pays for everything. We're not there. But my understanding is that where we are today as progressives in this party is what I believe in and where we need to be headed. I don't believe we're at a socialist state, nor will we ever be there, or should we be there. Thank you.
I'd quibble with my opponent's definition of what socialism is, but it depends on where you're looking around the world. Socialism, what I think of, is in Denmark or Sweden, where it works incredibly well. It's not about paying for everything. It's about actually having investments in people and institutions and building up and having things like free college tuition, having things like a social safety net that is robust and strong. What happens too much of the time is Republicans will use the word socialism as a cudgel, and they'll think of Venezuela, or they'll think of communism, or they'll jumble it all together. We can't fall into that trap. And a question like that, I think, helps the Republican message sometimes. We're Democrats. We believe in moving Virginia forward.
Time's up, and I see a rebuttal flag.
Oh, it's not a rebuttal, but I want to caution the young incumbent that, I'm nowhere close to the Republican Party, sir. I'm a hardcore blue Democrat, and let's get that straight. So not to cause any friction and want anybody thinking anything else-wise, but I am a Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take your flag.
That.
And I can't believe I got through my binder. This is the last question, right on time. This one we will start with JD. Mm-hmm. What is one thing that most distinguishes you from your opponent?
So what distinguishes me most is why many in this room today are probably saying, okay, well, who is this guy standing up here? I'm different. I'm not a career politician. That's what distinguished me right off the bat. But I am a public servant. And I've been, what I said earlier, where the rubber meets the road. My record precedes me. I may have not been in politics for 27 years, but I've been on the battlefield for our Democratic Party, for our social construct and how it affects our people of color. I've been there, done that, and got my hands dirty. The incumbent is a career politician, and that's what you get, all right, who's taken a lot of money. I haven't taken any money. Grassroots. That's it. That's all I want. And what happens in this political system, once you start taking all this money, all right, strange things happen. And if we don't guard ourselves in the Democratic Party of those people and individuals who want to bring this money in, we're going to find ourselves in a world of hurt. Thank you.
Alfonso?
Can you repeat the question again?
The one time I closed my binder.
There you go.
What is one thing that most distinguishes you from your opponent?
Well, I feel like what we need in Richmond going forward, especially at this critical time when we're on the cusp, we're so very close to taking the majority back, is a nuanced understanding of public policy and what it means to get things done in Richmond. And what does that mean? That means that it's not like Congress. It's very different than Congress. It's to also have the experience, and under the Jefferson Manual and the Mason Manual, having the seniority to go in as the majority whip next year, to go in as a committee chair next year. And as it relates to what my opponent said regarding funding and the veiled attack, the vast majority of my money comes from individuals, labor unions, and the environmental community, including Clean Virginia and the League of Conservation Voters. So I would stack up, and also I'm very proud of the fact that 2 years ago I was named the most progressive member of the Virginia House of Delegates by the Virginia Progressive Legislators Action Network, and this year I was named the 5th most progressive member. So I'm very proud of that.
Thank you very much. And I see the rebuttal flag went up.
Right.
20 seconds,
so
JD.
It's just a rebuttal to a comment that I've heard time and time again from the incumbent as he talks about we need someone who understands the nuances and have experience as it relates to Richmond. The Commonwealth of Virginia, our Constitution clearly states what it takes to be eligible for this office. And you've had the opportunity to see the incumbent for 8 years. And we've made some strides in this last election in 2018. We saw it. You need to have experience. You need to be able to read and understand and comprehend.
That's time.
So thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank the candidates for the most part, staying under time. And it's time for closing statements. We will start with Alfonso.
Sure. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you. Oh, you again?
He's still here, right?
I'm pretty loud. Sorry. Thank you all. Thank you all again for coming tonight, and thank you to the Arlington Young Democrats for hosting. There is nothing in the world as rewarding as helping people. Meeting a family that has a roof over their head because of my Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Making it easier for veteran women and minority-owned small businesses to grow and thrive. Helping just one dreamer student get in-state tuition and a college degree. Working with the folks and my friends and neighbors in the 49th District on constituent services every day. For things as disparate as helping a family keep the heat on in the winter, to helping negotiate to ensure that we keep DMV on 4 Mile Run and expanding the DMV. And ensuring that the social safety net is there for future generations. Going forward, we need to create more prosperity and do it in a way where everybody wins. We need to invest in our infrastructure and in our workforce, and most of all, in our children. To do that, we need experience, and as I said before, a deep, nuanced understanding of public policy and the Richmond legislative process. The issues that we're going to be dealing with for the next 2 years are critical if we're going to keep Virginia moving forward. Everyone knows how hard we've worked. You have too, to get to this point, to the point where we're so close to having a majority in the House of Delegates, and a majority that reflects our values. I'm going to continue to be a champion for the values in our priorities that we cherish. I'm going to continue fighting for the community I love, and I will continue fighting for Virginia that lifts everyone up and leaves no one behind. Thank you. My name is Alfonso Lopez, and I ask for your support and your vote on June 11th, primary election day. Thank you very much.
You know who he is, but JD.
Yes, thanks. If I could take just part of my time and ask a question real quick. If you could raise your hand, please. How many of you here tonight are from the 49th District? If you could raise your hand. Thanks for showing up tonight. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Arlington Young Democrats, for the opportunity to engage this evening. The 49th District deserves a strong, capable leader who is laser focused on everyday issues facing the constituents. I am that person, I believe. At this point, I may not have all the answers, but what I do have is authenticity. It should mean something. What you're going to get from me are 3 things: a proven and inclusive leader who is genuine and results-oriented, a leader who will not take money from corporations or from people who, by their actions, both directly or indirectly, infringe upon the social well-being of others or our environment. That's my pledge. And you're also going to get a veteran at a time when we have no veterans in Northern Virginia in this delegation, at the Senate, the House, county board, or the school board. No veterans. My friends, the Democratic Party of Virginia states we should be united in efforts to elect Democratic leaders of character, integrity, and ability. I hope for your vote on June 11th. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.